Hey guys, just in time here again. So I'm going to go through my debate recap now. This is for the third presidential debate, and I'm not going to go into question by question like I did with the last debate. I think the last debate being a town hall meeting, I think what questions were asked was just about as interesting as the answers themselves, and people were very curious about that. Whereas this one being completely based on foreign policy, I don't think it's as interesting exactly which questions were asked as much as kind of what happened in the key moments. So I'm going to sort of just hit the highlights and talk a little bit about the flow of the debate and kind of who was coming and who was surging and who was on the defensive at certain points, and then just kind of give my overall summary. So I'm going to get into it and start with the first question, which was about Libya. There wasn't as much about that, and Romney didn't come out and try to attack Obama about the disputed point from the last debate. I know some Republicans wanted Romney to come out and basically make the argument that Obama hadn't called it a terrorist attack the next morning in the Rose Garden like he'd claimed in the last debate. I personally think the Republicans were smart to decide to avoid that. I don't think it was really any benefit to them to get into a semantical debate about that issue and to bring it back up, really. The main point, I think, on this was Obama did come out attacking Romney, and he said that he'd been inconsistent. He was all over the map. I think this was the first time we heard the phrase that his foreign policy was wrong and reckless. And so right when Obama was kind of getting into rhythm and starting to get a feel for things, Romney came back with obviously what was a preemptive attack, something they had set up already. And he says, well, Mr. President, attacking me isn't a policy. And that was a pretty good line. Like I said, it was obviously a rehearsed line, but it did sort of set the tone to make Obama look like he was avoiding defending his own policies every time he was going to attack Obama. So I thought that was a subtle and fairly intelligent way of sort of cornering Obama right off the start of the debate, because I think Romney knew he didn't want to get into a punch-out fight tonight, and he didn't want it to be a knockout, because all he had to do was defend where he was at. Momentum shifted towards him right now. So it was a smart move to really sort of counter Obama's main strategy, which was to come out aggressive and to really come out swinging. So that's sort of what starts everything off. The next big question was about America's role in the world and what that is. Now, the answer to that, I think, is interesting enough for the American voters. I hit a couple of points on that. So Romney basically said that our role, in the next 4 years or even maybe the next decade, if he's a two-term president, is to promote democratic ideals and conflicts. We need to be strong. We need to lead from in front, which was another knock on his reference to Obama leading from behind. We have to get the economy going. He did make a reference to, the debt makes us look weak. If China thinks that they own, so much of our debt, then, we're not going to have as much power to enforce things. So anyways, he gave a lot of sweeping sort of analogies and ideals, but not very much specific points on how he's going to achieve much of that. Obama basically came out and sort of refuted a couple of the points that Romney had either directly or implicitly made about him as far as our foreign policy being weak. And like I said, basically saying that we looked weak in the eyes of our allies or just others in the world because of our debt, because of the what he called the Obama apology tour. So anyways, Obama came out and said basically that's all false and that our alliance has never been stronger. We've never had a stronger relationship with Israel and most of our other allies, and defended his policy basically, and then went back and also characterized Romney's foreign policy as wrong and reckless again, and sort of hit that point. Military spending, that was an interesting one. There was a little bit of kind of an interesting point. I think that's going to be one of the highlights probably from the debate, something you're going to hear a lot about. So within Romney's argument about why we need a strong military, he mentions that the Navy, for example, we're down to 285 ships, and if we go at this current pace, we're going to be down to like 225. So he says that's the lowest number of ships that we had since 1917. And so that sounded pretty good, and it was a good point, and you think, wow, that's true since 1917, but then Obama comes back, and he says, well, we may have the smallest number of ships that we had since 1917, but we also have fewer horses and bayonets. And so basically making the point that, a 1917 ship isn't the same as a ship today with aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines, and these are just enormous cities on the water, basically, compared to a bunch of little ships floating around in the Navy at that time. So that was kind of interesting, and he says it's not, the number of ships, and that it's not a game of battleship where we're counting ships. It's about what the Navy can do, and it's about our abilities. So that point, I've already heard from the commentaries tonight that John Kerry tweeted, I think Obama just sank Romney's battleship. So the tweet was pretty clever. It almost makes me wonder if the tweet itself was already kind of rehearsed, and that line coming out of the debate and Kerry tweeting that was something they had already practiced. And if they did, then that was pretty clever, and they set Romney up for it. So I'll give them credit for that. All right, so we're through most of the debate now. In the second half, we got into a little bit of a back and forth on Israel. Of course, Romney saying that Obama's been weak with Israel and so that he was going to put daylight between them. And then Obama just came back and said, it's never been stronger. We're doing military practices with Israel and different things that are larger than anything we've done with them in the past. And so he just defended his policies. Iran, basically, Obama said they won't get a nuclear weapon as long as I'm president. Romney again said that Obama's policy has been perceived by weakness as the Iranians. He kept saying that Iran's 4 years closer to a nuclear weapon. Talked again about the apology tour. And so Obama really kind of hit him on that and said that's a lie. And I didn't, have any apology tour. You've been saying that. And that's one of those things, all the fact checkers who checked it, there's no validity to it. So he got a chance at least to kind of come out and attack that claim that Republicans have been making against him. And then Afghanistan was one of the last pieces. Continued with this is something where I think we're going to have a little bit of news out of this because Romney seemed to switch his position again. I hadn't heard him basically support exactly what Obama's been doing. The interesting thing is that as long as he's been catering to the far right of the party, anything Obama's been for, he's had to criticize and be against. So even reasonable policies like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, Romney's criticized and said that we're pulling out too soon or we shouldn't have a timetable. So anyways, tonight he basically just agreed with everything and said that he would continue the pullout exactly on schedule. And so that was sort of another shocker, and it seemed like another time where he's kind of switching positions. So we'll see how the fact checkers and the other people, how that plays out tomorrow. One of the last things was on Detroit. They got a little bit of the back and forth on whether Romney said to let. Basically, I think it's another semantical argument where Romney's saying, look, I said let Detroit go through a managed bankruptcy. But, of course, the title of the article he wrote was Let Detroit Go Bankrupt. So that's where, is there a difference between letting Detroit go bankrupt or having them go through a managed bankruptcy? And so anyways, that debate went a little bit. The main thing I felt like, it's going to go either way, I guess. And, I've been known to be partisan, but I'm not an operative, and I'm not going to come out and try to make the case for the Democrats if I don't feel like they won. And I do feel, like I said, like it was pretty much a tie tonight. I do think when the fact checkers check it, Romney did shift positions again, something he's been doing lately, and I think he got away with it again. That's the thing is, if you're going to wait for fact checkers, you've already lost because most of the people have tuned off, and you're not going to have 65 million people who are ever going to find out whether a point or not was, exactly on the money. So anyways, I feel like for all intents and purposes, Romney pretty much won the debate tonight because he did what he needed to do, which was stave off the attack, which was kept his place pretty much dead even with Obama at this point, which is much better than he was a couple of weeks ago. And he staved off, the best of Obama's shots basically was still standing at the end of the debate. And it basically came down to the judges. There was no knockout blow, and that bodes well for Romney at this point. So we're just going to have to see. I mean, right now it looks like we're in a dead heat, even in the battleground states. Romney's caught up. He's made up a lot of ground and is either, neck and neck at this point or at least within a couple of points, a margin of error. So it's going to be very interesting to see the next 2 weeks how things go. But all I can say is that if you're registered to vote, you got to make sure you get out there and vote. Whoever you're voting for, this election could come down to, a few votes. Either way could swing the thing. So if you care about this country and you care what's happening, get out there and vote on Election Day. And I'll catch up with any, big news that comes up between now and then. So this is Just in Time. I'll catch you guys next time.